Steve Waugh, welcome to Sports Vibe TV. Here we are in Kuala Lumpur at the Lawyers Sports Awards. You're obviously a big supporter and ambassador for Lawyers. And since we last saw you, English cricket has dominated Australian cricket and then suddenly capitulated, all rather suddenly. With glorious hindsight, did you honestly see that coming even last summer when England were 3-0 up, but maybe there were cracks appearing?
No, like everyone else, I don't think anyone could honestly say they saw that coming. Not even the England squad, obviously. Look, we knew Australia had talent and they were a bit disjointed in that Ashes series in England. Showed some good signs, but I still thought England probably deserved to win 3-0. They won the big moments. But then in Australia, we all of a sudden got our act together. Darren Lehmann seemed to sort of bond well with the guys, are nice and relaxed. We started to pick players on performance over potential, which was a big change. And Mitchell Johnson was the X factor, came back into the side and gave us that real bit of aggression and positivity. And around that, Harris Siddle and Lyon bowled very well, and the batsmen scored runs at various stages. So it just came together for us, while England just fell apart. They, Trott leaving after the first test was a big loss, and then Swan retiring, and obviously Peterson causing a bit of instability in the team. And I think Cook was really left by himself. He didn't have any lieutenants around him. Pryor was lost form and was dropped. So it was almost like the sinking ship, and you saw what happened.
Pretty much the same teams, give or take. Momentum plays a big part, doesn't it? And sometimes it's the small percentages that can open up yawning chasms.
Yeah, and I think looking a bit beyond the obvious, I think England had been at their peak and were probably on the way down, and some of the players were hanging on, and maybe it went one, two or too far, as we saw at the end looking back. Maybe they'd been papering over the cracks, and all of a sudden, once they're exposed, and it fell apart pretty quickly. And Australia had that. They started to learn to win again, because at the start of the series they had 9 tests without winning. England conversely had 14 tests without losing, so we were, I guess, huge underdogs, and England were red hot favourites when you look at the form. But then when it reversed, we started to win and knew how to win, and all of a sudden it was just a completely different, two sides are completely different. Character,
personality, strength of heart, massive elements of sport. You had those ingredients in abundance. And it's one thing losing a bit of form, it's one thing maybe the momentum switching, but England fell apart, and that I think is what disappointed a lot of certainly English cricket followers, that they may have been outplayed, but they seem to be sort of outfought as well.
Yeah, and looking back at Australia in the previous couple of series, we had the same complaints where our supporters said, look, we don't mind losing, but we've got to go down fighting. Australians don't mind losing if it's a battle, but when they capitulate meekly, which we've been doing, our spectators didn't like it. I can see exactly the same point for England. I think that the moment that best summed up the England tour was, I think Ian Bell dropped a catch and then turned his back on the team and walked away as if after he dropped the catch, and then I think Bresnan picked the ball up and finished off the run out, but it was just a sign of almost we've thrown the towel in. It's too hard for us.
Obviously, a lot of big name players. You started it, and then there was this sort of steady procession of top Australian players retiring, and the theory was it might take a long time, because you don't just replace the Shane Warnes, the Glenn McGraths overnight. And okay, you don't have a Shane Warne or Glenn McGrath yet, but boy, it's not taken long, has it?
Yeah, I must admit, I always said we had a lot of talent when I was asked, so I knew that we had talent in abundance. It was more about getting the team together and starting to believe. I mean, right now we've probably got 10 fast bowlers who are good enough to play for Australia. We've got people on the sidelines like Cumming and Stark and Hazelwood and Cooter Nile and Bollinger, and there's endless quick bowlers who are good enough to play for Australia. So we've got, really, an abundance of riches in our fast bowling department, and we've got a couple of good leg spinners coming along. The talent's there, and batting-wise, Steve Smith has really progressed. He's a world-class player now. David Warner. So things are looking good. But having said that, maybe if Harris doesn't make it through injury, and then you got Haddon, 35, 36, Chris Rogers, we'll go through. There's always that evolution phase, and Michael Clarke with his back, his body's not great, so you just never know. In a couple of years' time, we could be saying, hang on, we're going through a rebuilding phase again.
And what about England? They need to rebuild, don't they? I think it's the end of an era, isn't it?
Totally. They've got almost a clean slate now, and they've got to pick their captain, which is Cook, and say, right, what team or what squad would you like? And they've really got to build the culture up. I think Did fall apart in Australia. I don't know why Swan retired halfway through. That was a real surprise. I mean, Trott, there's been, he obviously went home for reasons. Hopefully he can get back on board. Peterson now, they've made the decision he's not in the side. So, they've got to look at people like Ben Stokes. I thought was fantastic. He had really good attitude. He got stuck in. They've got to find some players like him. And there's no doubt English cricket will have those players. They've just got to back them now.
T20 very quickly. Australia looks strong. I mean, the thing is, Australia actually are looking strong in all departments, in all forms of the game, aren't they? I mean, they've got to have a shot with the T20, along with, I don't know what, India, West Indies?
Yeah, look, talent-wise, I think they're as good as probably anyone. Maybe India are probably the other favourites, but you're playing on subcontinent wickets in Bangladesh. That's another completely different element that comes into play. And I think India or Sri Lanka are probably the favourites in the T20. If we play well to our ability, we can beat anyone. But the slow pitches against spinners, it makes it a different game. So I think we'll be there somewhere, but I suspect India will be the favourites.
One final thing, Steve. This year has seen the retirements of Sachin Tendulkar and Jacques Kallis. You were too shabby yourself as a player. How highly did you rate those guys, and are they up there with the best?
No doubt, yeah. I mean, they dominated their era, and that means they're an all-time great. I mean, you can't compare Tendulkar with Bradman or previous players, or Kallis with Sobers. Who knows who's better? I mean, it's really just a judgment call. But their stats are amazing. Longevity in the game is really hard, and they were consistent over 20-year period. So both all-time great players.
Okay, thank you very much.